If you're toxic, baby, you're feeling heavy to me right now. You gotta go.
Yeah, you wanted a million and you show it. What you want, is it really that important? You've been on my mind.
Hi, I'm Kimberly, and today I just want to talk about the need that we have to let go of toxic relationships. We think we have a need to hold on to them, but we don't. That's just a desire, that's a want. And maybe we have to explore what it is we want out of holding on to that. Like sometimes it's just hard for us to separate what we thought this person to be, what we've believed them to be for the longest, from what they actually are. And I'm not talking about love relationships, I'm talking about friendships, co-workerships, frenemyships, all of that stuff. I don't care if it's social media ships. Whatever the ship is that you're holding on to, you gotta let that ship go. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to us, because I got the same issue. But I know that sometimes we want to hold on to people because, I see this potential. I feel like, all they need is, and I feel like they're about to turn the corner on and all of that other stuff. But in the meantime, I've learned to just ask myself a simple question. If this person doesn't, if they don't, if the potential that I see never comes to fruition, if whatever I have ideally in mind for them isn't what they also see for themselves, and they are in 6 months from now the same person that they are today, how's that going to benefit me? Because if it's not, then it's not. And if it's not going to benefit, I got to let that go. So I start thinking right here, right now, just like I have a plan and a trajectory for myself and what I want to be throughout 2024, I'm looking at people around me. Baby, I'm getting rid of some dead weight. And you're feeling kind of heavy. We're the ship. We're the ones that are holding it together, right? So of course they want to hold on to us. Of course they see it. We're not potential. We're the real deal, right? Right? You got to believe that about yourself. So when I say right, you say right. We're the real deal, right? Okay. So of course they want to hold on to us, but you got to ask yourself, do they benefit you as well? Are they moving and elevating as well? Or are they just still kind of stuck where they were, stuck where they are? Do they not see it? And I'm one of those people, I don't believe in just moving on my own. When I get ready to go somewhere, when I get ready to do a thing, when I see a path, I'm the first one saying, hey y'all, guess what? Listen, hey, let's try this. And whoever don't go, don't go. But you leave them there. Let me tell you a little story, because I always will. In yesterday's video, I was talking about the label of ABW, right? And how we're often seen as that. What I didn't mention, though, is that sometimes we ourselves see ourselves in that way. And the scenario was this, and it's not one that I've never seen before. It's embarrassing to say, but it's a real thing. And hopefully I'm appealing and talking to some of you parents out there and explaining what it looks like sometimes for us as Black teachers. There aren't, nationally speaking, a whole heck of a lot of us. I get that. So maybe you're not very familiar. Let me help you to get familiar with at least this one. So over the course of my 20-some-odd year career, I have had 3 different instances where a parent has wanted to remove their child from my class due to what I would call personality issues. And before you get very judgy about it, let me tell you that the first 2 quickly decided they wanted to come back. I didn't like the way they did it. So in all 3 cases though, in all 3 cases, they went to my then supervisor and said, hey, I have a conflict with blah, blah, blah. Let me even dial it back, and I'll be more specific about my last one of these instances. And this is where I'm telling you, a lot of times, the ABW scenario that we see in the news, in the culture, in the reality shows and all of that, that's not just seen by white people or peach people or other people. That is also seen by us. And a lot of times we also take that in mistakenly, and we believe it to be so. So not only as a Black woman am I up against that sometimes just from general people, but when I say a lot of us see ourselves that way, in all 3 cases, all 3 families and parents were also Black people. Now that's when I should start saying, dang, is it just me? But I can't, and here's why. A lot of the times, the first 2 times, they definitely moved their child out, sent them to a whole nother teacher went back to the principal, profusely apologized, came back to me, profusely apologized, asked that their child be able to come back to my room. There is sometimes this theory and idea, and if I have any other teachers out there, any other Black teachers that know what I'm talking about, please weigh in and let me know that it's not just me. But I know it's not, because I've had several other coworkers express the same thing. But there's this idea that another teacher's ice is colder. There just is. They just think that they're going to get something profoundly different or profoundly more enriching, and they find out that it's sadly just not the case. It's just not. And let me just, I don't even want to go too far into that tangent, because that's not what this is about. It's more so about this last thing and just getting rid of toxic people. So in the last scenario, I will say this. I had a parent go to a supervisor that said, hey, I'm not happy with the way that Miss Brown talks to the kids. And when I said something about it, she sent me an email that effectively said, get over it. Not true. So the email that I sent really said that, we all have different communication styles. And as your child gets used to hearing no and things like that, they're going to get used to hearing it also from me. It sounds a little bit different, but as the year progresses, and the reality is this, their child had acted up on a couple of incidents, but I'm not that teacher who calls the parent for each and every single little thing. And so as I told the child that, no, this isn't going to happen that way, that's not okay, you need to apologize. And as I began to say things like that, the child was just taken aback. And so reported it to the parent then reported it to my supervisor, the supervisor brought it to me. Now here's where the toxicity comes in. I noticed I was hurt by it, as I am every single time. Like, I'm mentioning this, but I would say it happened probably very, very early, within the first 3 years. The first time it happened, first 3 years of my career, it probably then happened another 10, 15 years later. Both of those parents, again, remember, asked that their child be put back in my classroom after having gone over to that other ice and realized this ice ain't a bit colder. Matter of fact, we had it more gooder with her. So we're on to this now being the third case. And I should mention this. In between these, far and above, I've had more families say, hey, she taught my child back when, and I want her to teach their sibling. Far more cases of that. I'll get to that in a second. So anyway, the then principal calls me in. She wants to have this meeting, and she's like, listen, I've got a parent who says that they don't like the way that you talk to their child, so we're just going to swap this child with that one, and we're going to go from there. And when I got ready to defend you, I looked in your records and I saw that you hadn't been communicating, so I couldn't even back you up. Really? Really though? She couldn't, and just to let you know what she's saying that when she looked at some paperwork, so here's how it works. Each and every single time I have a contact with a parent, I am supposed to log it into a system that says I had a contact with the parent. Now, mind you, at the beginning of the year, I call all of the parents, which is about 30 some odd at that time, all of the parents to say, hey, I've interacted with your kid has done so-and-so, I think they're going to do well in this grade, da-da-da-da. Then if I have a child who is sick or is acting different or something seems wrong or what, all of these are contacts. Bear in mind that my break may have happened in the morning. The contact that I need to make with the parent may have happened in the afternoon, and somewhere in between, while the kids are right here needing a lesson, needing this, needing their work check, needing, I am also supposed to log in and say, by the way, I've had this contact with your kid. So I've told you all before, I care a lot less about paperwork than I do about maintaining my relationship and teaching the kids. So no, it wasn't in the system. And what? But what I knew about that administrator is the fact that if you are going to let the fact that I haven't logged that in prevent you from standing up for a teacher, girl, you got other issues. You're lacking in another way. And if you need that explained to you, I don't know what to do for you. I ain't finna sit here and explain that. But this is what I'm thinking. I don't even go into it. The then administrator is like, yeah, I couldn't back you up, blase Skippy. And so I just said, you know what, this hurts. Give me a moment. This actually hurts. And I allowed myself to feel the hurt of that moment because it feels like a special betrayal when the person who says that about you also looks like you. And to be clear, she was just saying she felt like I needed to make sure that I said it this way and not that way. And I needed to make sure that her child heard it in a way that she's familiar and things like that. To be clear, though, to be clear, here's what, let me give you a little tip that you parents don't know. Um, a lot of times when there are issues or problems with students, it's logged, it's categorized, it's a part of their records. And so as the teacher of that student, I'm able to look and see the history of problems that that student had with teachers. And there was a history. And it was all leaning toward, I don't want to say that the child was spoiled, but I will, let's just say there were instances where we have a standard rule where, and this is district wide, it's not us making it up, because quite frankly, if it was up to me, it wouldn't be a rule. I enjoyed the days when parents could bring cupcakes and cookies and things, but now, due to allergies and, you know, the litigious nature of some people ready to sue for whatever, we're just across the board not able to accept cookies, cupcakes, all those things for birthdays. We're just not. I would love to, but we can't. And so as I'm reading through the history, it's like, oh, okay, this parent who was well aware of that brought him up anyway, then insisted, demanded, and was able to get her child's cupcakes and things like that delivered to the classroom. So as I say, this parent had a problem with me saying no or the way that I deliver things. The history says this here parent got a problem with no in general. So honest to goodness, it was not about me. But the thought, one, that this principal at that time allowed the fact that I hadn't turned in paperwork to be the reason she couldn't defend this teacher, who she later in the meeting with me told me, you're a good teacher. Yeah, but did you tell that to the parent though? Did you say that when it was needed to be said, or was you held up by the fact that I don't log in every single call that I make? So that was a bit of the turnoff. But here's the other thing: as I'm sitting there saying, give me a minute, I need to reflect on this. I need to, breathe in. Doggone, this feels like a betrayal. I noticed that she's kind of leaning in and watching me intently. It was the oddest thing. So even as I'm upset, I'm still seeing. I'm just an observant person in nature, and I'm noticing, like, why is she leaning in? Like, she's watching with keen interest how this is affecting me. But I don't really think anything of it. I let it go. I then leave that meeting, and being the person in general I am, being the teacher I am, I'm going to go ahead and pat myself on the back. Being the teacher that I am, a hardworking teacher, y'all. I have nothing but the best intentions for my kids. I plan hard, I deliver well, I do all the things right. And so, being that that's the case, there came a time when, remember I said I had 30 kids. Well, by state law, at that time, we were supposed to only have like 26, maybe 27. I can't remember what the cutoff number is. But once you exceed that number, you're to then add another section or an additional class. So now we're coming down to some of the kids in my class have to be removed. They have to go to another classroom. Please explain to me why, not one, not two, but 3 different families, including one family who approached that administrator after this meeting. 3 different families then approached that administrator and said, no, not my kid. Y'all gonna have to move some other, maybe little Susie or Johnny back there, but you can't move my kid. But do you think that principal ever told me that? You think that principal ever expressed it? And I'm gonna tell you, you gotta be, woo-wee, these parents out here don't play. One such parent literally played a recording for me to hear it. And let's just say I was less than pleased with the comments that administrator had regarding that parent's concerns. We're just going to leave it at that. And so the thing I want to say about letting go of toxic people is sometimes we just don't want to do it. We're so busy seeing potential. In the case of that administrator, I was just like, surely, a person working with kids has the interest of the kids at heart. And as such, you want to support your staff. You want to uplift you don't want to just be, you don't want to be that person that just only brings them bad news. I'm telling you, you have got to beware of people who are happy to bring you the bad news, but hold back on the good. Hold back. Why would you came right to me to tell me this parent was unhappy? Why wouldn't you tell me that these parents were happy? What is it about your nature would not allow you to deliver that news, right? But here's what I'll say, and this is what I like about me. I have now worked with several administrators, which is why I'm able to tell you the stories of the things, because it's kind of hard to track now which one was the one. Because one thing about Kymberly, she will leave a hostile, uncomfortable, or whatever environment. And so what I needed was the push of knowing that this person means me no good. She willing to bring me the bad news, but not at all the good news. And when it starts like that from top down, I mean, there are some other things, granted. Here's what I think is T to this is critical to know about God and how He's going to tell you some things, and it's really up to us to listen. I excused so much stuff in the name of comfort. When I tell y'all to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, I'm not just telling you all. Sometimes it's a message to myself, a reminder, or a note to my former self in this case. But there were things like, for example, you could be in the hallway with that administrator, literally walking past her, I mean, and she would find something else that was distracting or someone else that was distracting just to not say good morning. A simple thing like that. I noticed too that were I not the first one to say good morning to her, good morning might not be said for the whole and entire week, but we might go to a staff meeting and what do we hear? If we ever get a sub, you make sure that you say hello to the sub and you make sure, girl, it starts top down. And so when you're dealing with people like that, you don't have to wait for the in your face type of thing as I did. I mean, it was very clear. By the time you got several families trying to say, hey, we want this teacher, there's something, and you can't tell me that, but you were quick to tell me about the bad. By the time that's your personality and I get to see that, there's a problem. But here's the thing. That wasn't the first instance. It was the not speaking in the hallways. It was the curt answers and things. Like we once had some meetings and I was the chair of whatever committee it was. And so as such, I feel it's important to be respectful and defer to the current admin anytime I'm coming up with decisions. And so I would turn and I'd say, so what do you think of so and so? Or what do you think of whatever idea? That's fine. Okay, sure. Yes. Just very curt answers. Whereas, and I would say that's that person's personality, but I'd be lying because I've been in other meetings like, yeah, that's a good idea. I can see how that would work. And she would give more feedback than what we were getting. And it got to the point that after the meeting, another of my coworkers was like, I didn't know you guys didn't get along. I had no idea that she just didn't care for you. Like, she was just really borderline rude. She wasn't borderline rude. She was flat out rude. She was just really borderline rude. But oh my gosh, the way you handled it, you were so professional. You still stayed nice. You did all the things. Girl, that's called being on the clock. That's to me, that's just a matter of professionalism, which is a trait of leadership, I would say. So, but do you think I said that to her? That was her trying to be messy. Instead, I was like, really? I hadn't even, you think she was curt? Really? Curt. If I would have said rude. She was flat out nasty and rude, but I couldn't be bothered. But it's to say that there were all those different little incidents that were kind of giving me little pegs and hints along the way that, hey, this probably is not the kind of environment in which you want to work. Hey, this really isn't the circumstance that you should stay in. Hey, this really isn't for you. But it took that just blatant inability to come to me and tell me something good that made me say, it's time to go. Girl, get on so you can get along. It's just not worth my peace. And so what I'm saying to you is don't look for the potential. For me, the potential was she really can't be that way. I mean, surely if she's in this position, she understands the importance of supporting teachers and, presenting a united front. This parent already has a list of instances. This child already has a list of incidents where, so you got to be able to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, surely, and I'm just coming up with reason after excuse after reason of why this person really isn't exactly what they presented to be. And I think I more so did it then because I didn't want the discomfort of moving. I didn't want to do whatever. And so what I found was that I didn't allow their toxicity to change me. Now, that ain't going to happen. But I did find, after a while of me being silly, like, we walking past each other, I mentioned that part, and she would be, brushing something off and accidentally didn't see me. Hey, good morning, how you doing? Okay, you all right? Hey, happy Friday, all right. Monday morning, here we go. We're going to start us off a fabulous week. After enough of me doing all of that, after a while, I was just like, girl, you're doing too much to try to pump it up. You're trying too hard to make it more than what it is. And it's just time to move on. So that's my message to you as well after that whole long story. Just to recognize that potential isn't enough. Hope isn't enough. Seeing something isn't enough. Hope and desire and all of that just is not enough of a reason for you to stay in any toxic situation. I'll even tell you that DNA isn't enough. DNA doesn't make you family. It just, if it did, there wouldn't have been so many slaves. All those times that, the slave owner came into the slave quarters and produced children, that DNA said that but they still had to work, didn't they? They still had to slave labor, right? So we know that DNA doesn't even make family. What I'm saying to you is if it disrupts your peace in any way, if it makes you have to do a whole lot of extra, you're trying to make good out of something that just isn't good, let it go. Let it go for the sake of your peace, your sanity, and for the sake of being a happy new you.